All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Represented Series Education Edition. I'm really excited for our guest that is going to come on. I'm excited to introduce Catalina Franco Cicero. She joined Tobias Financial Advisors in October of 2017 as a financial advisor. In this role, Catalina's responsibilities include client relationship management, financial plan design, advisory of retirement plans, 401ks for small businesses, and delivery of financial wellness education programming to their employees. In addition, she also works with Spanish language clients and serves as a mentor for the next generation advisors on her team. Catalina switched careers to the financial services industry in 2011. Prior to switching careers, Catalina was a wellness professional and adjunct professor at Barry University. She is an avid Peloton participant. I absolutely love that. And you can follow her if you want to on Peloton at Scooby's Mom One. So welcome, Catalina.
All right, thank you so much. I think that's going to be the most important takeaway. Follow me on
Exactly.
Peloton.
Most important thing is to find Cat on Peloton, and that's it. You get nothing else out of today. That is the one
Absolutely.
takeaway.
You could turn away now. Actually, don't. We have lots of good information for you.
No, exactly. Well, super excited to have you here, Kat. I know you've got a lot of great things to share with our guests today. So I'm going to turn it over to you and see you in a bit.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dana. It's always such a pleasure to be here. What a privilege to be able to talk to people out there, other potential clients, families, people who are questioning whether or not they're doing the right thing when it comes to their personal finances. And something that you didn't include in there because I didn't send it to you, Dana, was that I am a first generation Colombian American here in the US, and I learned to manage my finances because when I came to the US, my mom was a single mom with three kids and she didn't speak English. And so I was the first one to learn English and I had to write the checks out for my mom. And I realized through that process that it was just very stressful not to know where your money was going. And I made a personal promise to myself that I would not be stressed out about money when I became an adult, that I would learn as much as possible. And so, with that being said, the tips that I'll be sharing today have to do with what you should be looking at for your own personal financial success. We'll start with the fact that it's really important to review this every couple of years to make sure that those tasks are taken care of. Often we just want to dig our head in the sand and say, oh, I don't want to worry about money, or maybe you leave somebody else in the partnership to take care of it, and you're like, oh, if they're taking care of it, I don't have to worry about it. But you'd be surprised, maybe one day you're the one that's responsible, or without your input, it cannot get any better. So it's important for all of us to know what things are being taken care of and what things we need to do right away. So this is a checklist that you're going to be able to download after this session, and I encourage you to go through it. With your partner, do it for yourself, your partner, for your family, and ask them questions about this because they may be, pleasantly surprised that they have some done and some not yet completed. So the first one that I always encourage people to do is to just get organized. I mean, just the fact that every year we have to file our taxes is a good prompt to get organized. And so if you could begin to do that throughout the year, this is going to be a cinch next year when you file your taxes. But having a cloud system, and I say cloud system because no longer are we going to a file system as commonly as we did in the past. And we need somewhere where if we had to share information with a loved one and they're in another state, for example, they could easily access this information. And so what do we put? What do we put in that? I'm going to go through throughout the rest of the presentation. But at the very least, critical information, documents, passports, child birth certificates, financial documents. Essentially, if something happens to you, where would somebody go to get this information immediately? And the resources, many of us use a Google Drive or a Box as far as like an online secure cloud system. And then you could share that with someone else. So, for example, my husband and I have each other's Google Drive, and I could access documents for him and vice versa. And this is easy because I could also do it through my phone. And so I just want to make sure that at the very least, as you're gathering documents, you know exactly where they are. The next thing I say to you, for you to be really financially successful, you got to know where your money's going, right? We spend oodles of years working and we exchange our life energy for money, and then we ignore it, which is really silly, right? Why work so hard if you don't know if this money is going to be working for you? And so the first thing I would say before you even build out a financial plan is say, okay, where is the money going? How much is coming in? How much is going out? And what is available for a curveball in the future? And what I mean by that, it could be a death, it could be a disability, it could be that your car broke down, it could be I live in Florida, so it might be that a hurricane comes and takes my roof. So I need to know exactly how much money I need on the sidelines to help offset that emergency. So making sure that I'm reviewing that on a consistent basis, and I put it integrated all into one system. One system that is very easy to get to is mint.com. There's no cost associated with that. I mean, they do market to you, but at the very least, you could aggregate your data. You could also use something like Quicken. It's easy to use, and again, you could see tracking, decades of tracking in there, as well as a spreadsheet. And what else would you put in there as you're knowing your numbers? Look at your debt, your savings rate, your net worth. This is really exciting, actually. I have found many clients who have never put together the net worth before they started working with me. In fact, I remember a nurse that came to us last year whose husband had passed away 2 years prior, and she had everything in a file folder about this thick with all the statements, and she just basically handed it to me and my associate and said, I don't know what I have, uh, put it together. And it was during that first meeting that we started looking at the statements and began to put together her net worth. And she was blown away because she didn't even know how much was in there. So you could just imagine the reduction in stress if you know where your money is, the objective of each dollar, and how you track the progress over time. It gets very exciting. At least it's really exciting for me. So if it's not too exciting for you, find a financial planner or financial advisor that gets excited, because when they begin to show you the things to track, it's so much fun. The third thing I would say is that once you have your paperwork organized and you know where your money's going, it's time to assign your dollars a job. And I kind of say this is like having employees, right? If your dollars are a company and everybody's sitting on the sidelines and in the cafeteria and nobody's doing anything, well, those dollars are not going to grow, they're not going to produce. So we got to make sure we assign those dollars money, and that we also know that if we have liabilities, that we know when those liabilities are going to be done. So for example, every year, and I know New Year's resolutions is a great time to revisit your finances and say, okay, am I making sure that I put money towards my emergency fund? Am I, if I can, maxing out the 401k plan at work, or an IRA, or a health savings account? How can I begin to do that early on in the year? If I have children, or I'm assisting a niece or a nephew with their educational costs, then perhaps I could begin putting money aside for them early on. Obviously, as you know, the earlier, the better. And if I'm looking at debt, then looking at what is the most efficient way to get it off your plate. Now, you've heard good and bad debt, and some of it is deductible, some might not be deductible. So having an idea at least of what you have and how long it will take for you to pay it off, and what makes sense to expedite, and what might make sense to just keep as is or stretch it out even more. So it's important to know what that is. And along with that is knowing your credit score. This is incredibly important. I cannot tell you how important this is. It's going to help reduce the amount of interest that you pay on loans over a lifetime. So just increasing your credit score could save you thousands of dollars, as well as going for jobs. So I'll give you an example. In my line of work, if I apply for a financial advisor job, my credit report is going to be looked at, right? And they're going to make sure that I'm eating, I'm following my own advice, taking on my own advice. And so you got to make sure that you track your credit score. And so again, you could set your savings rate in mint.com. You could use a spreadsheet, or you could talk to your financial planner. And us as financial planners, we often have very fancy software that could not only account for every dollar that you're putting in, but if it's taxed differently, we could make those projections over a year, 5 years, decades, and into retirement, which makes it even more exciting because you begin to see the power of saving a little bit at a time. Another tip that is really, really important is paying yourself first. So now we're organized, we know where our accounts are, we know if we have money for savings. So once we start saving, we have to know where the money is going. And so if you begin to look at your 401k or your IRA, part of the role of a financial advisor is to say, okay, does the way that you assign the dollars to go work for you, the most efficient for you, and are they taking advantage of all the opportunity, all the time that they have to work, depending on how much you could tolerate risk, how much risk you need to take, and what is your time horizon. So we're looking at those things for our clients. We're also looking at your goals and just saying, okay, a specific goal may require that you don't touch those dollars for a very long time, so we could make it a little bit more aggressive. But another goal could be a short-term goal, and so we might not be putting that in the market, for example. So just making sure you understand the objective of the dollars, of the objective of each account, and where to put the money. Again, a financial planner can help you that. And also many companies have a retirement plan advisor. So if you work at a large company that has a 401k, sometimes they'll come and meet with you once or twice a year and give you some feedback. The fifth tip I would give you is to manage the tax man. So I crack up with my clients because I say, I've yet to meet anybody that I've talked to that wants to pay more in taxes. And if you're that person, please call me. I want to know who you are. But I can tell you that making sure you review any tax saving strategies throughout the year is extremely important. Some of them have deadlines to help reduce your taxable income. So make sure you not only are maximizing tax deferred 401ks, IRAs, health savings accounts, but also that you're managing your withholding. Nobody wants to be surprised the next year saying, oh, you owe extra dollars in taxes. And this is something that could be done proactively. In fact, this is something that we do for our clients. You know, many of our clients want a tax projection, and we begin to work on that, and even throughout the year to make sure that they reduce the tax liability as much as possible. Now that you've managed the tax man and you continue to do that every year, you'll become kind of like a little expert on that. You also need to manage not just your investments and looking at retirement and taxes, but the estate plan, right? This is the kind of thing that most families don't want to talk about. I can tell you that. It usually takes families a little bit longer to decide, hey, if something happens to me, because I have to think that one day I'm going to die, is who will be able to step into my shoes to either make decisions or, who's going to take the assets that I worked so hard for? Who do I want to inherit these assets? So it's really, really important. What I love about CHIP is that we do have estate planning attorneys as well that are accessible for consumers that they could feel comfortable talking to. But having, for example, a proxy for somebody that will make medical decisions on your behalf. I mean, COVID was a great time for us to really learn whether or not somebody could make those decisions for us. Did we have the right document in place? Also, financial power of attorney. Again, going back to COVID, if you were in the hospital and you couldn't make your rent or you couldn't pay your electric bill, imagine, how that would have accumulated over time and what a hardship that would have been for you. So instead, if you had a financial power of attorney in place, that would have helped you continue to make those payments or at least communicate with some of these financial companies to make sure that you didn't incur any penalties. Also, making sure you have a guardian. In fact, yesterday I met with two of my clients and their estate planning attorney, and they have two minor children under the age of 5. And it's something that you have to think about. If something happens to them, who's going to step into their shoes to take care of their children? So we got to make sure that these people that you trust with your health, with your finances, with your children have access to the appropriate information. Not only do they have the documents to present in case of that information, but information is needed, but also they know what questions to ask and who to go to. I have spoken to clients that have come to me in the past and said, oh, yeah, Kat, I have the estate planning documents, but I have them in a drawer in my office. And I'm like, does anybody know that those documents exist? Does anybody have an extra copy of these in case they have to do something? It's not uncommon that you would have family out of state, and not everybody's going to have access to that drawer, which is why that cloud folder that I mentioned before is really, really important. Other documents in here, and of course, I'm not an estate planning attorney, but I do encourage my clients to make sure that if there are any changes, if there's a death, a divorce, a birth of a child, that they update their documents. That's really important. I mean, I've met families that now they put their estate planning documents in place when their kids were minors, and now they're adults. They already have been launched, and the same things are in place when in fact things have changed, right? You can have a child that already has children. So now you have to update those documents to make sure they reflect what you want. So make sure that you're looking at this often and having those conversations so that you're not surprised. You don't want to have a financial crisis and an emotional crisis at the same time. You want to make sure you take care of that. So go to your estate planning attorney. All right, number 7, reducing unnecessary risks that could derail your life and your finances. Oh my goodness. I think for many of us, unless you feel that you have the financial means to offset every possible curveball in your life, that you will use money from the portfolio to take care of that, then there's the rest of us that say, okay, no, well, I like to transfer the risk, right? I often tell clients, you don't want to pay a lot for a little, right? So if it costs me a little bit in insurance premium to get a large benefit, yeah, I'm going to get a benefit that way that is less costly in the long term. So what are things that we need to protect that we cannot afford to lose? Well, homeowners, right? And if you live in Florida, and of course throughout the country, you've seen home prices increase, you definitely need to go back and revisit your homeowner's insurance. You may have already had an increase without you having it reevaluated, but definitely you got to make sure that you have your home taken care of. Your auto, I mean, most of us are driving all the time, making sure that we're properly covered. Umbrella insurances. I have clients that may not have this, and in fact, they may have a portfolio that's hundreds, if not millions of dollars that would easily be exposed in case there was an accident and somebody wanted to sue them. And so for the cost of umbrella coverage to protect those assets, it's really not a lot to transfer the risk. So you got to make sure that's integrated. And of course, your deductibles, and I often tell people, put those deductibles in an emergency fund. You know that you may have to use that sometime in the future, but that's why we have an emergency fund. Also, review the impact of death or disability. I'll give you an example. I have a current client right now who is getting evaluated for Parkinson's. He's still of working age, and having that disability coverage pay for him during the last couple of years before he retires is extremely important for his plan, right? Because if he didn't have this, then he would basically finish his working years and there would be no income coming in, which means that he has to begin invading the portfolio much earlier on than he anticipated. So this is extremely, extremely important. I also want to say that many people haven't received pay increases. So if you get, a pay increase, you definitely want to reevaluate the disability insurance, because it's just a way of thinking of you're insuring your paycheck, right? If something happens to you today, how would that affect your family? How would that affect your lifestyle? Will you be able to continue to save? Probably not. So you've got to make sure that that is covered. It's not fun or exciting, but it's definitely something to think about. And then I say, what if this crisis does happen, that there's a death or a disability? Have you thought of what items on your budget you need to reevaluate, that need to come off so that you could live off of the income that would be available at that time? And so we do this type of analysis for our clients to make sure they're prepared, and we have these conversations. Again, people don't like to talk about this, but if you talk about it and you have a plan, you're more confident, right? If you happen to go through the crisis, you're like, well, at least I could mourn the death of the person I love, or I could help my spouse who is going through a very challenging medical transition, or whatever disability they're going through, but I know that I'm going to have the funds to take care of this emergency. So that's really, really important. So make sure that you have in your back pocket a good property and casualty insurance agent, a financial planner, a worksheet. These are things we provide for our clients, but if you're going at it on your own, I mean, you could do this on your own. You don't necessarily need somebody if you feel like, hey, this is easy for me. We may have some really good people out there who want to change their career to financial planning, Dana, and then this is a good practice. Do your own financial plan. That's a fun way for you to learn. Number 8, don't underestimate the power of your employee benefits. This is so important. Often I talk to people who are very focused on the salary, which I think is extremely important, but also as important is what benefits your employer is going to offer you. Why? Because they get preferential costs for so many things like life insurance, disability insurance, health insurance. Um, I've seen long-term care insurance as well, pet insurance is in there. So those things that normally would be far more expensive if you went out to shop for them in the marketplace on your own are now accessible at a group rate that will make it a lot easier for you. In fact, something like life insurance, you could probably increase the coverage without having to go through the underwriting process, which means that you would have to take pretty extensive medical exams to make sure that you qualify for it. So don't underestimate that. That's extremely important. And not only is it important for you, but it's important for your family, right? Because this is going to help them again offset a crisis. Be ready. I love it when people print these out and share it with family so they know what you have. Number 9, be honest, direct, and respectful around money. This is so important. I think a good way to gauge your future relationship or the relationship that you're in right now is whether or not you could talk about money. And we've all heard that the statistics are pretty high of why people may choose to separate or divorce. And I've heard money is an issue. So let's have those conversations as soon as possible and as respectfully as possible, because we make financial decisions every single day. From where do you go get gas, right? That's the thing now. Oh, where do I go to get a discounted rate on my gas per gallon, my gallon per gas? Anyway, you know what I mean. We have to make sure we're having these conversations about small things and big things that would really impact your family. We actually created something called a family creed. And this was great because this helps couples have those uncomfortable conversations like, okay, I could spend X number of dollars without checking in because we both agreed that at $100 is no big deal. If I spend it, it's not really going to make or break our budget. For some people, it's higher. For some people, it's lower. I'll use myself as an example. I talk to my husband a lot about money. He says, oh my gosh, woman, you drive me crazy. But can I tell you, he is very conscientious now when he buys anything and tries to make sure that whatever he really buys, number one, he's going to get a lot of use out of it. That's something that's really important to me, that if we're going to spend a significant amount of money, that we actually get our money's worth. So that's one thing. But also that it makes sense as it may impact other saving buckets. So we don't want to sacrifice the savings for buying something that might throw off. If it means that if I make this large purchase, I have to work an extra year past the retirement age, then I'm going to rethink that a little bit. And I would say for parents, gosh, you need to teach your kids this because they learn so much from you. So make sure you're having this conversation. And of course, as financial planners, can you tell we love talking about this? You have to stop us from talking about it. All right, the last tip is to schedule time to manage your financial freedom. I think this is by far the most important thing. Even if you feel like you're starting and you have a lot of debt, you don't have anything organized. I mean, that's even more reason to get it done, right? And say, okay, let's take it one step at a time. Let's get organized and let's make it fun, right? So if you have something that motivates you to get it done, like let's say I'm going to get this done and I'm going to reward myself by getting a massage or getting on a Peloton ride for me afterwards, then find a way to do it. I can tell you, my husband and I have been married for 16 years, and at the beginning of each month, we sit down and we do this very old school. Even though I use Mint and I also have a spreadsheet, so I cross reference all my numbers to see where we are. And we are able to go back, years to see where we first started. And it's kind of fun because we laugh. We're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe when we got married, we had nothing. We started it was just us just scraping and trying to make it. And now going, looking ahead 16 years later, it's just incredible that we've been able to build, our little savings buckets and feel really good about the direction of our financial life. Okay, so put that on your calendar, make a date with yourself to do this for sure. Those are all the tips I have for you right now. I think you will do a great job just looking at this and saying, I've done this or I need to do this. And then write down your action steps. What did I do? Who did I talk to? What do I need to revisit? It could get a little overwhelming, which is nice to have a buddy. Let's say that you don't have a partner and you have a best friend, and you could talk to them about money and you could help each other. So I always say, make it fun, as fun as you can make it. And then if you want to hire a financial advisor, make sure that there's someone that you feel comfortable talking to about these things, because it becomes really intimate. We get to know so much about you, but we're also cheering you on.
Absolutely. I'm all for the cheering on. I think that's probably the funnest part, right? We do all of those things. We get the 10 steps in. But as we're doing it, right, as we're going through the 10 steps, we're cheering each other through all of those different steps, and making sure, to your point, I love how you talked about, finding someone to hold you accountable, whether it's a friend, just any kind of buddy who's in that same space with you, along with possibly your financial professional or your financial professional team, and whatever that looks like, right? So all of those people working together to better you, and make sure that you are solid. So thank you so much, Kat. Really appreciate your time today. I know
My pleasure.
yeah, thank you. I know everyone will get a lot out of what you talked about and discussed. And I know we're going to have you back. So I'm looking forward to that. So everyone will get to know and learn a lot more about you on our Represented series. So everyone have a wonderful rest of your day. Make sure you catch up on other episodes, whether it's the Fireside edition or the educational edition, and find some takeaways and make sure you share it. So everyone have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of your week and weekend.
Bye. Thank you.